Two friends, Alan Dale and Jerry Carew, who grew up just a few streets apart in St. John's East End, have been separated by Canada's geography for 3 decades. They came together virtually during the pandemic to chat about like-minded interests. Alan lives in PEI and Jerry in Newfoundland. Thriving in remoteness has been a common theme for both of them during the pandemic. Gale Force wins. The podcast is the result.
Degrees, you're looking 53 today, Sue. Off the desk.
I'm still waiting on that. Have standby.
Roger.
Roger.
All right, so here we are on the bridge wing of HMCS Toronto. Beautiful day, somewhere in the middle of the North Atlantic. Just left historic St. John's en route to Halifax. What an exciting time. And with me today, we've got 2 naval warfare officers. And that's a complicated job on board this ship. They make the whole thing function, from the weapons platforms to the maintenance, to the running of the ship, the navigation of the ship. It's really interesting. So I'm very excited to get into this conversation right now. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Sub Lieutenant Brianna Miller. I was born in Halifax, Nova Scotia, lived there until I was around 10 years old, and at that point I moved to St. John's, Newfoundland. Spent about 10 years of my life there as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah, love it. And then did first year university at Memorial, and then that's when I decided to join the military. And I attended the Royal Military College in Kingston, and then I stayed there for 4 years. Then I moved to Victoria, BC, did my training there for 2 years, and now I'm back here in Halifax, Nova Scotia.
Wow.
Yeah.
How about you?
So I'm Lieutenant Navy Bridget Woodman. I joined QCH. Well, I'll start from the beginning. I'm from Prince Edward Island. Belfast, Prince Edward Island, a small city in PEI. And I grew up...
Beautiful city.
Yeah. And I grew up sailing boats and racing sailboats with my sister, which really inspired me to join the military.
Right.
And I joined the military at Queen Charlotte, one of the reserve units there. You were actually my first ever CO and swore me in.
Great unit.
Yeah.
And you agreed to come on this podcast.
Yeah. And from there on, I studied and went to Victoria, BC to do NWO training. And then
NWO, what's that?
Naval Warfare Officer
Right.
training.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still struggling with all the acronyms. It's been 35 years since I was in, so.
And then I got posted to Halifax, and I was sailing on the smaller warships, the MCDVs, so
Right.
the minesweepers, from 2016 until 2021. And I got to go to all these incredible places, Western Africa, the Arctic, down to the Caribbean for drug intervention. And then I got posted here because now I'm hoping to make the switch from reserve to reg force. And I've been sailing on Toronto since June. So
Awesome. So 2 Atlantic Canadians. Tell me what it was like doing your training out in Victoria. What was that experience like for you?
So at the time, it was quite the challenge, it seemed like a pretty big mountain.
Right.
But we had pretty good teachers, walked us through step by step by step, just lesson by lesson. I'd say we did about half our time in the classroom, just learning about different evolutions and things that take place on ship. And then at the end of each course that we did, we would have a solid sea time. So we would go to sea and then practice these different evolutions and practice our bridge watchkeeping skills and navigation. So it was pretty challenging, learning everything.
Of course, and a pretty beautiful part of the world to do all of that.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
So tell
it
me
really
now,
was.
a naval warfare officer, that's a pretty complicated job. Tell us a little bit about exactly what it is you guys do.
So the most important part is that we're the presence on the bridge that represents the captain. So we, for the most part, run the program of what's going on ship. So on ship, there could be engineering drills, firing, a SwimX, anything that's happening, we're the ones who are going to make sure it happens on time and direct the team. But we're also in charge of navigation and making sure that the boat stays safe.
SwimX, what's that?
So that's when we stop in the ocean and we'll all hop out and go for a swim. So
You're kidding me.
I've never done it.
No,
But-
I don't think it'll be happening today either.
Hopefully soon.
That's got to be a cool experience.
Yes.
I bet a lot of our audience couldn't imagine that actually happens, but that is really quite cool. So you guys, so you're on the bridge. Jerry and I have been up on the bridge. We've been watching a lot of things play out here, and there just seems to be always chatter, people talking, information flowing around all the time. How are you able to manage all that information?
You definitely practice it. So part of that going to that training in Victoria, you start with the basics of maybe having two people to talk to you, but then by the time you're ready to get onto a warship, you've learned to kind of filter the information, who you need to talk to, and it's definitely a skill you have to practice. So
100%. Your thoughts?
I would definitely agree with Bridget, and I'm still in the process of kind of figuring out who to talk to, filtering the information. So it's still a work in progress for me, but just taking it step by step and asking for help when I need it.
I bet
Well, I've watched you both on the bridge, and you both seem to really know what you're doing. I know when I was your age and I was on the bridge, I was
pretty nervous.
very nervous all the time. In fact, so nervous that I ended up becoming a logistics officer.
Still a great train.
We spoke to the logistics officer on board. Equally, a lot of information to manage, a lot of moving parts as well. But it's complex for sure, and there's a lot of things, but you must have some great mentors on board. Tell us about what it means to be mentored, not only by the other naval warfare officers, but by the crew as well. I'm sure you learn a whole lot from those guys as well, eh?
yeah, because you meet people from every walk of life, which is really like inspiring and great. But yeah, I've had so many great captains and even like great chief bosun mates that have just shown me like what good examples of leadership are, and you try to emulate that as much as you can. Yeah.
That's right. It's all about leadership for you guys, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really is. That's what you're training to be, the leader of the ship. It's fantastic. You've both had a pretty kind of fun career, and right in the middle of the career, to be quite honest with you. You got a big, bright horizon. Exciting times in the Navy, right? New ships coming online, great leadership, lots of great missions and stuff to be involved in. It's got to be exciting. Tell me what you're most excited about.
I'm definitely most excited about seeing these new ships come into play. I'd like to experience as much as I can and get to sail on as many platforms as I can, see the world. A part of the reason why I joined the Navy was to travel and see the world, so I'm definitely very excited about what the future holds with the Navy.
Awesome. How about you?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with everything Brianna said. But yeah, for me specifically, I am interested in also the Arctic patrol vessels that have just come out. Spending more time up there, it's so beautiful, and getting to see our Canadian North is very special. So that's what I'm really excited and looking forward to as well.
And now, what would you say to people that might be looking at this as a potential career? Like, there's people right now wondering if the Navy is right for me or the Armed Forces. What would you say?
Honestly, when I was considering joining, I was on the fence.
Right.
But I got that push from a lot of my biggest supporters. My dad was in the military, so he really pushed me, mentored me into it, and I would honestly say just go for it, because it's been the best experience of my life. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Awesome.
Just do it.
Dad was in the military.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, so my dad also in the military, and he was part of that inspiration. And you know, now my sister, who's deployed on Fredericton, she's also part of, you know, our family and inspired by that. But yeah, I would just say it's an absolutely wonderful experience. If you're looking for adventure, if you're looking for just to try something new and meet new people, even if it's just for a short amount of time at the reserve unit or a long-term career, the military offers so many different things, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone.
Just fantastic. Well, there's no doubt in my mind that your families are very proud of what you're doing. This is incredible stuff. You're leading this warship. This is great. I mean, this is a complex operation that you guys are part of. Can't thank you enough for your service. Can't thank you enough for what you're doing for Canada. That's just wonderful to see. Halifax on the way to Newfoundland, Belfast, Prince Edward Island. This couldn't get any better for Atlantic Canada. This is the future. So thanks very much.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
and I'm going to add, Alan, you know, we've interviewed a lot of female entrepreneurs, and we know that there's incredible female leadership, and it's 2 female leaders standing before us
100%.
right now. So
Yeah,
thank
this
you
is-
for that.
Couldn't get any better. Thank you both.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thank you.
All right, so back on board Toronto, and it's exciting to be in conversation with the sailors. And one group of sailors on board, they do a lot of heavy lifting on here. They take care of a lot of the small arms behind us. They manage all of the lines and all of the coming in and out of harbor. Some real intense work being done. In fact, putting the boats in the water and things like that. And that group of people are called bosuns. And we're lucky to have one of those guys with us today. Matt, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm Matthew McMullen. I'm from Kingsville, Ontario, Canada. I joined the Navy about 5 years ago.
Awesome.
And it's been hoorah ever since.
Matt, where's that in Ontario? Explain to us where that is.
So Kingsville's the most southern town in Canada, actually. It's just on Lake Erie. It's right near Windsor, Ontario.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Everyone thinks it's Windsor.
No,
right?
no, it's Kingsville
See,
for sure.
I've learned.
Yeah.
I love this. I've learned something today about
Wow.
my,
So you
my country.
you grew up in the shadow of Detroit?
Yeah, we did. We'll not talk too much about
No, but you
Detroit.
spent a lot of time over there as a kid? And stuff?
I did go every once in a while. I used
Yeah.
to skateboard over in Detroit
Yeah.
at a modern skate park there. So
Right.
I used to go over every once in a while with my mom and my brother.
Right.
And we'd skate up there. So
So Matt, was that a big thing for you growing up, skateboarding?
skateboarding was, yeah, it was definitely one of my my hobbies there. I spent a lot of time doing it.
Is
so.
that right?
Did you bring one on the ship with you by chance?
I didn't know,
No?
but I tried a few of my friends on board, and I'm not as good as I once was. But
Is that right?
yeah,
So Matt, there you go. You're skateboarding down there in Southern Ontario. How does this happen? How do you go from Southern Ontario to standing here on the bridge wing of a Canadian frigate?
Well, I originally went to school for police foundations at Fanshawe.
Yeah.
And I met a clearance diver in the Navy through my old man. He's a police officer down in Ontario as well.
Okay.
So one of his coworkers used to be a clearance diver in the Navy. So when I was exploring my options after college, I thought that it would be a great one. I always loved the water. I worked on a fishing boat down in Kingsville as well, and I worked in the fish plant, so I always knew I liked the water. So it was definitely something that
What do they fish down there, Matt?
they do a little bit of pickerel, a little bit of yellow perch, white bass, white fish.
Yeah. What's the water like down there? Pretty rough?
It's actually pretty smooth compared to here, but yeah, no, it's nice and warm. Here's
Right.
not so warm, but
So this clearance diver got his hooks into you, sold the Navy on you,
yeah.
and then
yeah.
off you go to the recruiting center down there in Windsor?
I actually went to the recruiting center in London.
Yeah, okay.
So I had moved from Kingsville, and I was staying with my dad in Woodstock for a bit while I was waiting for my recruitment.
Yeah.
And I went to London Recruiting Center and
Signed up?
signed
Did you
up.
know what a bosun was back then?
I had a general idea,
Right.
but it was just more or less the recruiting video. So you
Right.
see a lot of the cool stuff, and
Yeah.
you don't see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff as well.
Right. Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's a really great experience. Yeah.
So, okay, so you become a bosun, now you're in the Navy. You find yourself on board this platform. What's that like for you?
It's actually pretty rewarding. So here I got a very good chain of command, so they give me a lot of opportunity to excel in my trade,
Right.
and they give me a lot of different opportunities that are above my rank level to give me a go at and prepare myself for the next rank. So it's really rewarding being here on Toronto.
Yeah.
However, I am from the Goose Bay originally, so I'm usually on the smaller ships, the maritime coastal defense vessels.
Right.
So it is a little different platform, but I started my career on frigates, and I've been here for the last 2 months.
Right.
So it's a little bit of catching up to do because I was on a different platform for a while, but it seems to be coming along. So.
Good. And what kind of work, like what are you guys in charge of here on the frigate?
So for frigate, you just seen a couple minutes there. I was in charge of the RAS for the liquid RAS.
Right.
I've been in charge of cargo transfers on here. We maintain all the small arms for pre-fire and post-fire cleanings, and we also shoot them as well. We do all the man overboard rescues with the boats. We do a lot of the ship's husbandry that would entail a lot of the cleaning and the rust removal, etc. And
Matt, I bet you they didn't tell you all that stuff at the recruiting center.
no, they never told us about taking off a bunch of rust, but they told us about the boats and the guns, and that was what gets you, right?
Matt,
So-
you should be in recruiting, man. You're a perfect spokesman for the Navy.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So, Matt, like, we talk to people all the time, and there's people out there now wondering, hey, they see a ship go by and they wonder, is that for me? And in fact, many people that we talk to are influenced by just a simple visit on a ship. What would your piece of advice be to somebody that's looking at maybe the Navy as an option?
I would say the Navy's a great option. You get to see the world. I've been to a lot of different countries that I've never thought I would ever go to.
Yeah.
I never really left Canada besides Detroit when I was growing up. So it was a great opportunity for me to see the world, and I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. I've had so many great experiences. I've had some bad ones because being at sea can be a little hard sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
But it's all worthwhile in the end when you get off and
Yeah.
you get to see a bunch of different places.
What
so.
was your favorite port, experience that you had?
I would have to say Madeira, Portugal is my favorite port. It's a little volcanic island off the coast of Africa.
Yeah.
It's owned by Portugal, but it was really cool. We got to rent scooters, go up the whole island, and it was just honestly the most beautiful place I've ever seen in the entire
What was it
world.
like sailing in there, Matt?
It was how do I explain this? It was quite the sight to see. It was like it's almost a straight drop off of some parts of the island right to the ocean, so it was really cool riding up those roads. And you look down, it's a 100 feet drop to the ocean, but it was really quite the thing to see there. So
A little different than Lake Erie.
yeah, it's definitely a little different than Lake Erie. You get a couple sandy beaches on Lake Erie, but you don't get no black beaches. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, just another great conversation with a genuine guy from Southern Ontario, finding himself here on board HMCS Toronto, making a difference, serving his country. Matt, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Take care.
On board HMCS Toronto, we're at sea right now. In fact, ship's in the middle of flying stations. There's parts of this ship that, quite frankly, guys like Jerry and I can't get access to because our security clearance isn't high enough. And those are the areas called the operations room. There's a lot of things happen in there, a lot of people work in there. And as you can imagine, a lot of computer screens, dark red lights, dark space, a lot of information flowing around. And that's where the ship fights from. That's where the warfare areas are, and the ship functions as a warship out of that space. We're certainly excited to have a conversation with one of the gentlemen that works in that space. Eric, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. As I said, my name is Eric Hambley. I've been in for 8 years as an NCI, Naval Combat Information Operator, and I originally first got into this job just as a reservist. I thought it was just a part-time job. I was going to be a mechanic, actually, civvy side, but then things changed. Turned out I like this job. I like being at sea, traveling the world.
Eric, where are you from originally?
Mississauga, Ontario. That's where I was born, at least.
Okay, so Mississauga, Ontario, that's a pretty busy place.
Oh, yeah.
Not many ships up there.
No, it's in the GTA. So, but
Right.
occasionally we do have ships coming down through for what's called Great Lakes. So they do stop in that kind of area.
Right. Did you see any of the ships up there during the Great Lakes?
Like when I was living out there.
Yeah.
I was too young at the time.
Too young.
Yeah, no. Once actually, I think what actually inspired me to join the Navy though is so my parents had a timeshare in Hawaii at one point,
Okay.
and we went to Pearl Harbor, and they had, I think it was the USS Missouri, the old battleship they had there for as a museum piece.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it was a picture. I have my mom still has a picture of it where I'm standing underneath the main forward guns, and maybe I was only 5 or 6 or something like that. And it's, that might have actually been what inspired me to join the Navy. Something just a little something in the back of my head saying
You
this
were
is
5 or 6 at that time.
yeah.
Well, Eric, you're not alone, right? Just yesterday, Jerry and I introduced the fleet commander, the Commodore on board. In fact, I believe he'd be the senior rank traveling with the whole group of ships here. He was inspired, not much different than that.
Really?
He went on board or saw a Canadian ship in Quebec, and something tweaked in him that I want to be a part of that. So your story is not much different from the fleet commanders. So you might have a bit of a future there as you rise up in rank. Tell me a little bit about exactly what your job is on board.
Specifically, I'm what's called a system manager. So system manager, I make sure link is running and make sure all of our equipment inside the ops room is actually running as it should be. but that's more of a fill-in position for me right now because of the staffing issue. But normally I'm what's called aero/track soup. So air raid reporting operator. I actually deal with incoming missile threats and aircraft and things like that.
So you're on radars watching all of this?
Yeah. And so I'll be sitting on the port side of the 4 main radar stations.
Right.
CMS consoles, and then also right next to that is the track soup console, track supervisor. So in a way, he kind of takes all the information in and then is able to process it and help out the officers who sit behind him, making sure that the picture actually looks correct and they understand what's going on, so they can fight the warfare. Because the ones in the back, the officers, they're the directors. They're the ones who are actually fighting the fight.
This is a very important role.
Well, it's 100%, and it sounds incredibly complex. So it sounds like it's kind of layered. You pick up targets, and then you determine what direction they're going and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I'll mention it's tracking course speed. If we have the helicopter can talk down to us and they can say, hey, we see this. Looks like it's profiling a warship. We can scan how long the approximate length of it is down to a couple feet.
Right.
So then we can actually say, okay, if it's got that, we can look through our database. Okay, it's got this. It's got that. Okay, it's possibly this.
Right. So you're kind of tracking all this information. There's a lot. I mean, there must be a lot of things moving out on the ocean at any given time that you need to pay attention to.
Obviously, it depends on where you are. Like off the coast of Halifax here, it's not that, or Nova Scotia, it's not that busy. But if say you're in the Mediterranean,
right,
super busy. If you're in the South China Sea, same thing, super busy.
Yeah.
Same with the Gulf.
Where were some of the cool places you've been so far?
I got to go to the Arctic multiple times. I was there actually last February doing icebreaker tests for
You know what's interesting about that is how many sailors have told us about the Arctic.
Absolutely.
You think, all these exotic locations, but our own Arctic has really inspired people.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
Well,
cool.
it's like when you go up there, it feels like you're on another planet. It doesn't look real.
Yeah.
Right. Well, what is it about it? Is it? Tell us about it. What is fascinating?
It's an exotic land within Canadian territory. When we think exotic, like you said, it's like you think like warm tropical destinations and stuff like that. But it's I feel like it's exotic, but in its own different right.
Right.
It's not like it has its own mystic and beauty to it. Like I've been up in none of it. I've personally walked out in the tundra. There's seen giant mountains as far as the eye can see. All the crazy wildlife. Like
it's funny. You sign up to see the world, and one of the first things you tell us is that Canada has impressed you.
Yeah.
That's why I think I love what you and I are doing.
Yeah.
We're giving you the ability to tell our viewers that story. Isn't that fantastic?
No, Jerry, it absolutely is, right? And the Arctic, I think there's going to be a lot more work to be done up there, right? Particularly as Canada kind of does business up there and our Navy starts spending more time. Have you been on one of the Arctic offshore vessels?
Yeah, that's actually that was the ice. Harriet Wolf. I was back there back in February.
Oh my gosh, what was that like?
It was first time actually being on a brand new class of ship, so I got to see how that's like.
Did it have the new car smell?
New ship smell, more
new
like.
Ship smell.
It's more than the new ship smell. But we were testing ice. We were like north of Quebec there,
right?
And what we noticed is the Harriet Wolf can actually do what it's advertised to do. It just bulldozes right through the ice like as though it's not even there.
Yeah.
Albeit it sounds like a constant car crash with just ice scraping up against the side of the hull, but.
Right. We're getting a tour, I believe.
Yeah, we're gonna go to the Irving Shipyard and have a tour of. I think it's Margaret Brooks. We're probably going to be on. That's pretty exciting to be on. So, Harriet Wolf, you've been on an AOPS class ship, an Arctic Offshore Patrol ship. You've been on a Canadian Patrol frigate. We're on one right now. What else are we on?
On the MCVs, actually. That's where I started off.
Okay, so you're on a mine countermeasure defense vessel, and you were a reservist then?
Yep.
Wow. And then when did you make the transition into full-time service?
I want to say 2017. Because what happened is we had the Navy had a mass transfer idea saying for people who are on C-class contracts, which is you might as well be Reg Force contracts for the reservice. Yeah. Saying if you want to come over to the Reg Force and have guaranteed employment, we can set that up. Right. So I was like,
you made the transition. You love the Navy?
It's a hard job. It can be frustrating at times. I'm always gone. I'm one of the high mileage sailors.
Okay.
I'm always the guy who's always at sea. That's the main issue with me. But I do love it.
Yeah.
I love seeing the world. I've gone to places I never thought I would ever see. So.
Yeah. Well, the Arctic's one of many other good ports.
I've been at West Africa.
Oh, wow.
I've been to the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Let's see the Caribbean a few times.
That's great, man. That's not bad for a guy coming out of Mississauga. joining a ship, and this is great. Eric, there's people out there, they see these ships go by all the time, and they're not quite sure what they do. What would your piece of advice be to somebody that sees guys in the Navy or sees a ship go by? What would a piece of advice be if you're thinking about that?
If you see one of us, ask questions. Like, obviously, we're all fairly skilled in our trades and down details. I'm actually trying to get a couple friends Civvy side to join.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Having any luck with it?
Not so much.
No?
Mainly, when they hear military, the first thing they think is basic training, and we all know basic training.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Eric, did you do any recruiting in St. John's while you were there?
no, but notice that a lot of people there love the military. Like,
You're damn right.
Yeah, for sure.
7 ships show up, and next thing you know, they're like, "Hey."
Eric, you made a good point there about basic training. It might scare people off. But tell me about your experience in basic training. Did you make good friends there?
Actually, I have a good couple friends. Actually, I have one that he's not here anymore. He's over in over out west now.
Right.
But me and him, we were essentially Beavis and Butthead.
Okay.
Just two jokers.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I remember being on that bus that pulls into Valcartier there.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the barbed wire fence, and I'm thinking to myself, what did I get myself involved in?
Right.
But I was expecting the whole full metal jacket type experience and all that, and
Right.
things like that. But I call it the best summer I've ever had. It was 8 weeks of just fun.
Is that right? Yeah, because there's good leaders there, right? I mean, good people there to help you through the whole process. Right?
Oh yeah. But of course, you get as much as you put in, right? So
Exactly. Well, and you know what I love about the Navy, it's a lot about leadership, right? It's a lot about people helping each other succeed and helping each other when the teamwork. The ship is just one big example of teamwork. Listen, Eric, I certainly appreciate the conversation today. There's no doubt about it. You're a good, strong, young leader, and you've got a great, bright future ahead of you in the Canadian Navy. Thanks very much for your service.
you're very welcome.
Yeah, Eric, I want to say as well, you're very articulate. Good on you for being able to do it. This is one of the busiest areas we've interviewed in. There's been people going up and down. I was a little distracted. You never missed a beat. So
Well done, Eric. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Well, here we are just outside the operations room on board HMCS Toronto. We talked earlier about about the complexity of things that happen in the operation. A lot of information gathered around the ship. Right now, the ship is in air operations. We're in. We have a helicopter about to depart, and so everybody's closed up on radars and stuff, and they're monitoring the activity that's happening around the ship. But there's a whole other level of complexity on a warship, and that's everything that happens underneath the water. And we're excited to speak to one of the sailors that are operating in that domain. He's a sonar operator. So, Seth, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi there, I'm Sailor Seth Yanathan. I'm from Toronto, Ontario. The reason I joined the Navy is just to see the world and try to do it economically.
Right. Okay, an economic way to get around the world.
And this is it.
this is pretty good,
it,
right?
Yeah.
So we're just right downtown Toronto. Is that where you're from?
I'm maybe 15 minutes from Ryerson University, so it's not really downtown, but it's about there, yeah.
Right. And so what was it about the Navy? How did that spark your interest?
I went through the Canadian Forces recruiting website, and I just picked the job that appealed to me the most and what I had the qualifications for, and apparently sonar operator, it is what it was.
Yeah. So did you have any buddies or anything in the Navy at the time?
No. How I ended up joining the Navy was I met somebody at a bar, and that person told me about the Navy and everything.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that person told you all about, were they in the Navy or?
They were in the Navy, yeah.
Okay, so they kind of explained everything to you, and that's it. Kind of sounds like me. Off you go to the recruiting center. Did you have any idea what a sonar operator did? And what about it intrigued you?
The thing about the sonar operator was sonar operator is like a trade where you hunt and track submarines.
Right.
So it really appealed to me because it wasn't like the normal day-to-day office 9-to-5 sort of thing.
Right.
So it is a challenge, but it's a challenge I welcome.
Yeah, well, certainly not this is not like a day-to-day office, what we're on here for sure.
Nah.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity happening on the ship. I mean, there's almost 30 occupations on the ship alone. But sonar operator is a pretty unique occupation on board the ship. Would I be wrong in saying that?
It is one of the trades in the operations. It is pretty unique because there's no civilian transfer over to it. So it is what it is, really.
Yeah, right. So that's great. So what specifically do you do in the operations room? How does that all work in there as a sonar operator?
So I sit down in one of the sensors and I would either train for tracking submarines or I would actually track said submarine depending on what the mission is.
Right.
We also do acoustic analysis training where we try to listen to cuts over and over again just to see what the sounds would be and everything.
Right. So this is kind of like, I don't know if I might be dating myself here now, but Hunt for Red October.
That's pretty much what it is.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Just like that?
Just like that.
So that was like Jonesy on Hunt for Red October. He was listening to, is that the guy?
That's pretty much what it was, yeah.
So you are the Jonesy of this ship.
Yeah, that movie is somewhat accurate. There's some similarities and some of it's different, but
right.
That movie is a pretty accurate representation, I would say.
Well, that's pretty cool stuff. Can you imagine tracking a submarine beneath the water? That's a pretty incredible stuff. So you're a guy, so any good ports that you've been to?
I liked all the southern European ports I've been to, and the one North African port I got. I like Tunisia and Italy a lot.
Is that right?
And we often go to Suda Bay in Greece. That's one of my favorite ports too.
All right.
I know Suda Bay like the back of my hand.
Is that right?
I've only been there for 3 days, yeah.
So that's on the island of Crete, right?
Yeah, that's on the island of Crete.
I'm going to have to look that up. I'm not familiar with it.
So that's a pretty cool place to be, right? Right in the Mediterranean?
Right in the Mediterranean. The weather's always nice. It's pretty isolated. You're in an island too, so it's always nice things to see over there.
Right. What's your family think about you joining the Navy and seeing the world like this?
Initially, they were kind of bummed out.
Right.
Because there's always the long distance aspect about it, but now they're more welcoming of it because I show them my pictures and show them where I've been in the world and how I've impacted or how I represent Canada abroad and stuff like that.
Right on.
That's something to be proud of, isn't it?
Oh my God, are you kidding me? That's a pretty honorable thing for sure, right? Here you are. So here's a guy, joins the Navy, wants to see the world on a budget. I think you're achieving that. You're having a great time doing it, yeah? That's great. What would a piece of advice you might give somebody who's looking at the Navy as an option?
There's definitely worse options you can pick in the military in general. I'd say the Navy is not one of them. The Navy is actually pretty good in terms of like wanting to see the world and not being trapped in the office or not doing like a 9 to 5. You wake up, you go to work, and you come back, and you repeat that for the next 25 years, sort of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure. It's an adventure you're living for sure. Well, there you are. We're having another great conversation with a Canadian sailor doing a pretty unique job on board this warship, and that is tracking all the underwater activity. That's not a normal 9 to 5 job. Sure glad to meet you, and thanks for your service.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
21 degrees. You're looking 53 today, Sue.
I'm still waiting on that. Standby.
Roger.
Those are
Well, here we are now. We're back in a very unusual part of HMCS Toronto. This is called the Flight Coordination Center, and we just saw a helicopter take off, and there's a guy back here responsible for this whole operation, and he's one of the engineering staff on board the ship. So we're certainly looking forward to having a conversation with him. Tony, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Tony Francis, originally from Pickering, Ontario. I got 14 years in the Navy now. You asked me a question earlier, what brought me to the Navy, and I'd have to say a large part of that was me having done sea cadets as a kid, and continuing on with a trade with the government was a big aspiration of mine.
Right on. So where was Sea Cadets in Pickering?
It was. So actually I went to Harwood, which was located in Ajax, which is just the city over. Yeah.
So that's the name of the Sea Cadet Corps?
Yeah. It's Royal Canadian Sea Cadet Corps, Harwood.
Right on. And did you go away to summer training and stuff with the cadets?
I did. I went every summer. I went away and went to RMC actually. Is where the cadets operate their summer camp. And went there, did drill and all that.
Yeah.
Set me up for a good career in the military.
Yeah. And what was your favorite part of cadets?
Sailing.
So, is that right?
Yeah, I was an avid sailor, racing, and 2-man boats, 1-man boat, and it was great exercise, great skill to learn.
Right, so the Navy, kind of a natural progression. Anybody else in the family involved in the forces?
No.
You're
so the first one from my family to go to the forces.
Right, so the Navy was kind of a natural progression right out of cadets?
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, into the recruiting center you go?
Pretty much one-day process. I graduated high school early.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was looking for a trade, looking for a government job.
Yeah.
And the Navy provided.
Right. And why did you settle in on your particular occupation?
My particular occupation was trade-based. Wanted to work with my hands, definitely. Wanted to be a blue-collar type of person.
Right.
Get right down to the nitty-gritty kind of stuff.
Right.
And as the trade evolved and as things changed, made me even better. Made it even better, made me want to go and pursue it even more.
Is that right? So were you a pretty mechanical guy growing up?
No. I was that city kid, right?
Right.
Struggling with the welding, struggling with the woodworking.
Right.
Lot of chirps going my way, but that was fine.
Yeah.
And I'm here today, and that's what
Right.
made me the person
But you
I am
figured
now.
it out, eh?
Exactly.
Good for you. So now you're on board the ship, and what do you do exactly on the ship?
So on ship, my main thing is structures and domestics. So we handle all the hotel services on ship, all the damage control is our main focus. However, so hotel services. Sorry, let me backtrack there. Fresh water, HVAC on ship,
Right.
black water, gray water,
Right.
things like that is what we would look after. And then our secondary duty, what are the main people and structures, is helo crash rescue firefighting.
Oh,
so
wow.
that was the route that I took to make myself a FLICO.
Right.
So helo crash rescue firefighting was the main route we went. After that, we get a course called Sector 1, which was leading the team on the deck if in case of any kind of crash bird.
Wow.
And then from there you progress up here into FLICO, and you just do the coordination part of it.
Tony, that sounds amazing, right? A lot of people see ships sail by. They don't quite understand the complexity of all the moving parts of this thing. But you just nailed it so easy. I mean, hotel services. I mean, just like a house, right?
Exactly.
You've got water running. You got to keep electricity going. All of that needs to happen, right? But on top of all that, that's a pretty complex job. Flight rescue. I mean, that's quite interesting.
Yeah. So like I said, so the other big part of that job, being in structures and being in that engineering department, is damage control. So on ships, we have to be ready for floods and fires. And so naturally, that's our main focus as our trade in a wide department. And then slowly there's a select few that go towards the helo crash side.
Right.
And so obviously that intrigued me and wanted
Right.
to progress. And that's
There must be a big team on board in the engineering department. Is it a good team?
Oh, great team. Great
Yeah.
team. Very tight knit. Definitely the officers are a different type of breed too,
Right.
that we very work hand in hand. They're down with us shoulder to shoulder working on the equipment.
Right. And so you're a junior leader in the group.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the people that work for you directly.
Work for me directly. Great group of people. Definitely hard workers, like I said. You need to be in this trade, be in this department.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody's got to lean in on the ship, eh?
that's right.
Everybody's
Exactly.
got to lean
Pull
in
your
and do
weight.
their. Absolutely, Tony. I can tell that you enjoy your job. Pretty happy guy.
Yeah, very much so. It's a good trade.
Tony, you're a guy Pickering. It's a bit of a stretch to go from Pickering to on board a destroyer, but I do see the path. I myself was in Sea Cadets. I was inspired by Sea Cadets to join the Navy as well, so I can see that path. It's a good. I always found Sea Cadets was a great foundation, great way to meet people and learn leadership skills and the like. So that's great. Tony, what would you piece of advice you might give to people right now about maybe joining the Navy?
It's a great trade. It's great benefits, great pay, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, definitely for the younger people out there, cadets is a good stepping stone, and then moving into the reserves to try
Right.
to get a taste for it.
Yeah.
For sure, there's a lot of opportunities and different segues you could go.
And you get to see a bit of the world as you
Oh
go.
yeah.
Tell me
very
about
much
some
so.
of your favorite places.
Some of my favorite places. So I really enjoy Greece. I've gone to Greece quite a bit, as well as Estonia.
Right.
I've been all over the Baltic. Been all over the Med.
Wow.
Yeah. Pause there.
Landing?
We're gonna come into a sec after real quick. Just correcting some people.
Listen, Tony, that's great. We really
All
appreciate
stations,
the conversation.
you're closed up.
Notwithstanding, so
Gates
right
for
now we're in the
people
middle of a
flight deck,
helicopter
we're
race, and I
deck.
understand that the FLICO right now is under training
Yeah.
from you.
Yeah.
You're not a bad guy, Tony. You're able to run a podcast and supervise the hoisting off a helicopter. Thanks very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Well, listen here. We're down just beneath the helicopter deck on board HMCS Toronto, and it's amazing. We just watched the helicopter land, and it not only did it land, but before it landed, it lowered somebody off the helicopter. So Jason, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and tell us what you just did.
For sure. I'm Jason Darrow. I work with National Defence Parliamentary Affairs as a desk officer. We just got off a ride on the Cyclone helicopter, and upon arrival, we were lowered down by harness to land on the flight deck. First time for that, and it was a fascinating and exciting time.
So listen, Jason, you're a desk officer in Ottawa. How often do you get lowered out of helicopters?
Well, the answer for that is never.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What was it like?
Oh, the adrenaline was kicking in.
Right.
It was exciting. I mean, nothing like that in the world, and a great opportunity, and I'm glad I could take part in that. Yeah, it was wild.
So listen, Jason, you've been on the ship now for a day and a bit. You've met a lot of the sailors. Tell me what your first impressions are.
First impression is just how great and friendly everyone is. Their dedication, their pride in their work. That really stands out the most. The pride that all the folks put into their work and their duties, and it's admirable seeing that and seeing them serve the country and do it with pride and dignity.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to see.
Pretty amazing place here, isn't it?
It's fantastic. I love it. Yeah.
Do you think you're going to be better because of this experience?
Oh, 100%. Not only me, but professionally, and taking back the stories and the knowledge from the people on sea and how it will inform our work. It's invaluable, and it will go a long way.
Yeah, listen, Jason, thanks for getting up out of the desk, coming on down to Halifax and joining this wonderful trip.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Megan Weeks. I'm the Deputy Director at our Parliamentary Affairs team in the Policy Group at National Defence.
So Megan, I just watched the Cyclone helicopter take off and land, and I saw you get on the helicopter. You were smiling, but then I saw you come off the helicopter and you were smiling even more.
You bet.
Tell me about the experience.
It was incredible. I was probably of the team the most nervous, most trepidatious, but I'm just so happy I did it. It was an experience of a lifetime. It was absolutely incredible to be up in the helicopter, to be able to see the ship below. We saw the Montreal in the distance.
Oh wow.
Just to see the waves and the colors and feel the wind, and I didn't ever think I'd have the guts to stick my feet out.
Right.
But I did.
You were sticking your feet. Oh my goodness, that's fantastic.
Those are your feet. I think we got them on the podcast.
Did you? Excellent. So I feel really just excited to have had this opportunity. And the crew was amazing aboard the helicopter. They made us feel really safe, and they were really clear. And I think that's why I felt courageous enough to do something like that. They were awesome.
So Megan, now you've been on board the ship for a day and a half now.
Yeah.
You've met some of the crew. Tell me about your experience so far.
I mean, it's just been an incredible experience. Having the chance to speak with so many different members of the crew has been really interesting. Hearing their stories, hearing about their roles, hearing what they're doing has been informative for my work in Ottawa to understand the Navy, and has truly made me appreciate what they do. They're all, top professionals, really caring, and really, should make Canada really proud.
Yeah, pretty wonderful people on board.
Amazing.
Yeah, they really are. But what's really cool about it is there's 240 people on this ship. There's helicopters, there's sonars, radars, guns.
Yep.
People cooking food, people paying.
Yep.
Everybody's functioning together as a team. Isn't that amazing?
It's incredible. It's incredible that what they pulled off, and we got to watch a double RAS, they called it, a replenishment at sea. Seeing how to pull a feat like that off required all hands to work together. The teamwork is, I think, one of the most impressive aspects of this visit, is seeing that teamwork in action. It's been awesome.
I couldn't agree more, Megan. Certainly glad that you guys came from Ottawa and joined the Canadian Navy. I know they're pretty happy to have you on board. They're all pretty proud of what they do.
They should
and I'm glad that you're proud to be a part of it. So thanks very much, Megan.
Sure am. Thank you.
So here we are in one of the engine spaces on board HMCS Toronto. This is an impressive warship with impressive power. This ship can move fast through the ocean at most any sea state. We witnessed it over the last couple of days. But there's people behind these machines. There's people that make them all function, and we are so very fortunate to have one of those guys with us today, and fortunate for Jerry and I, because we've known this guy for quite a long time. So Jim, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm James Squires. I'm a Marine System Engineer and Officer. I'm in my 33rd year of service. I was born 1971 in St. John's, but I grew up mostly in Paradise, Newfoundland, which is in Conception Bay South. I'm one of 6 kids. Both my parents are deceased. One of my sisters passed on, and I'm the only one. I joined the forces in 1989 right out of high school. So I was a medic, and I did that until I became I got out of Army. I wanted to do education. At that time, there was no educational programs. Other than the recruiting officer said if it wasn't for my juvie record, I would have went RMC because my marks are high. So I went in the Army, and got sick of it because you're living in a bag, eating from a bag. Great people, but it wasn't my thing anymore. So I got out, joined the Navy Reserves, HMCS Cabot, started going to school at Mon, didn't know what I wanted, and I was originally a diesel mechanic. And that's where I met you.
Right.
And we sailed and did a lot of things. Great people. Marine engineering. So I went and did Marine Institute for 3 years, graduated from the Marine Institute, became a 4 class, sailed in the Merchant Marine as a Navy Reserve, what I was saying. Got my 3rd class, sailed. But then my father died and my mom got cancer. I went in the Navy Reserves initially, tried to get Rig Force, but they wouldn't, did a PLAR, which is a learn assessment, and they take my thing so I didn't have to do it. So I stuck in the reserves and sailed on MCVs. And out of 6 years, that's 72 months, I sailed 60 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I went to DC school. So I went and worked fire department, the fire, and I taught DC for three years, and I went back to sea in 2009. Got accepted. For me to go do a component transfer, I had to go to recruit center, applied nationally, regular officer training program. Applied, got accepted. Number two in the country. I was surprised at that. The only thing I came number 2 was the number 2 in the lineup, a police. But anyway, so I got accepted, and that's one of the good things. It gave me a chance to get free education and all that. And I got a physics math degree at St. Mary's.
Wow.
All right? And believe me, and this goes back to my teacher, Miss Hall. Ha ha! Don't judge a book. There's always a new page to write a new story. Yeah.
That's good advice.
That's good advice, Jim.
Right?
So a new chapter in your life. You're now on board HMCS Toronto.
Yep.
What do you do on board here?
I am blessed to be on the ship is old, but I have a hard-working bunch of guys. Now, I got taught the principle of leadership, right? And be it if you're a master sailor, which is the first level of leadership in the Navy, to an officer, and as an engineer, officer, we think of a 4-sided triangle. There is always the mission and the commanding officer's intent. But I'm the second point as an engineer and officer. But I have the plant and the people. And my job is to keep that happy gray area of all those 3 points in a working order. I don't have to do that much because as the assistant Marine Systems Operator, I'm basically on my training wheels for my final qualification, so I can take over one of these as an engineering officer.
Starboard side, top our ship, out of balance, small arms firing in progress.
I managed this $2 billion platform, 40 people, and which is a lot less because my last job was FMF Cape Scott. I had 80 people, and there were a lot of issues. I used to say more issues than National Geographic. Right? But sailors, well, they're hard workers, men and women, and they're from all across this country. So I'm on a good ship here. Guys are working. They work really hard to keep the plant going. They work miracles. The teamwork. They're great guys, and good wardroom, good ship, and that's what you need. You need that team, and for the most part, we have that team. Like kind of point, like, what else you got? Right? If I can't get through you, I'll go around you or dig under or I'll go through you. We're going to get it done, son. And that's it.
Right. Jim, tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, my wife is Kim. She works for the province as a social worker. This is the second time I'm with her. When I was a medic, I took her to her prom back in 1990. She dumped my ass. and I'm willing to be with you the rest of my life. So she has for any good partner, she has a great heart, smart mind, and a lot of patience to deal with me. And
No way.
oh yeah, she's a saint, but God love her. I have a older daughter, Liberty. She's my stepdaughter, but I've been raising her for 15 out of 19 years. She has a serious health issue. She has brain cancer, terminal. But the Navy is one of those workplaces, like my wife's taking care of that. She got all support. And I got to keep the lights on, just like anyone else. And there's a lot of people out there. One thing I learned in university, I met a lot of single parents. And they were my heroes, men and women doing it. So I do know there's a lot of people out there worse. And I talk to my wife and kids every day. I'm blessed to have them, because they made me from a boy to a man. I'm blessed to have my daughter. And I got a couple more months, but when things happen, I got everything in place for my wife and my kids. They have 50 times what they need. I have a job that will support me, that a lot of civilians don't have, and I'm grateful for it. I have guys behind me that are my rock, that keep me going. And when the time comes that I need to go shore, which will be in 4 months, my work will support me and keep me as a job for the next 2 or 3 years. While I have that option, a lot of people don't, and I'm very grateful for that.
Pretty amazing place that'll do that, eh?
Oh man, you get to see a lot of people, good and bad, from across the country in this outfit. And I have an uncle who was in the Black Watch, and I saw him just recently when we were in Newfoundland, and he still had friends that he made back in the 60s for life. So you make friends, and even if they're acquaintances, they're your comrades. And it doesn't matter the color of the skin, their politics, their religion if they have any, their sexual orientation. A brother or sister is a brother and sister for life, a comrade. Right? And we have that. So that's cool. And then I have Faith, who's 12. She's a lot like me. So that's why I'm going bald. Pulling the hero. But she has spirit, and just like any man, you want your daughter to be independent and well, and they're both fighters, and I love that about them. Wow. They're both fighters, right? Intelligent, too intelligent at times, but God love them, right?
Jim, you wear your heart on your sleeve. You lead from the front, you can tell it. I watched people around the ship for the last couple of the days. The way they respond to you, it's with respect. It's amazing to see, Jim, and I'm so glad that we reconnected some 30 years later almost. Yep. I meet you here. It really is good to see exactly what you're doing and the inspiration you're providing to so many people on this ship. What would a piece of advice be from a guy like Jim Squires? You've lived life well. What would you say to folks to inspire them?
Well, I say for leadership, the respect I earn as a person, every day I have to earn it. You get up, you have to work to earn it. Don't take for granted, you can lose it. Keep your integrity. You're born in this world, bare ass naked, and you only got your word, and nothing's worth than that. Be truthful, be honest, tell your people the truth. Don't let them do anything that you haven't done or willing to do with them. If you can't lead from the front, lead by the side so that your brother and your sister know that they're not left. Be an example, work hard, and sometimes to be a leader, you're working harder than the worker.
Well, it's not often I'm left speechless on gale force winds, but today I am. Jim, thanks for your service. Thanks for what you're doing for this ship. Thanks for our friendship over the years.
Thank you for not charging my ass when you were my boss, too.
So here we are on board HMCS Toronto, just outside the galley, speaking with yet another cook. And the reason we're speaking with two cooks on this podcast is because the chief cook speaks so highly of one of his team members. He tells me that Patrick's leaning into the job, that he's an excellent multitasker, and that he's producing great food for the crew. Patrick's a big part of this department, and I love it when leaders want to put their team ahead of themselves. Patrick, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Certainly. I'm Patrick Frazier. I'm a master sailor. I'm the galley buffer here on HMCS Toronto. I've been in the military about 8 years. It should be 8 years just next year. Cooking-wise, I've been cooking for, some quick math, about 25 years. I've been doing it since I was about 16. I worked at Harvey's right next to my house, and then from there it kind of just took off. I did 5 years of university. I got a degree in recreation and leisure studies from UNB. And then as soon as I graduated, kind of some politics of recreation, even though that sounds like some weird phrasing. They didn't have a job for me in my field, so I walked by a restaurant that said, hey, we're looking to hire somebody. And then I graduated on like a Thursday, and that Monday I started cooking right back to it. They were like, oh, hey, you need to start paying your student loans. So I was like, well, I like this. I might as well move home and start cooking. So I dedicated myself to getting my Red Seal. I did it a little quicker than some people do. It takes about 3 years roughly. You work a year, you work 2,000 hours, you go into Acrely, NSCC Acrely here, and then it's about 6 weeks. Right. You do the whole thing over again 3 times, and then you write the Red Seal test. And because I had worked so much ahead of that, they were like, hey, you're good to go. So I had to work 1 year, and then I did back-to-back blocks. You have to apply to write the Red Seal test a month ahead of time. And I was in school, and I said, okay, I'm going to pass. I went straight to the teacher, said, I'm going to pass. You know I'm going to pass. I'm going to go apply. So I went and applied, and they were like, okay, when did you finish your course? And I'm like, that date. And they're like, that's the Friday before the test. And I was like, here's the phone. You can call my teacher. I will be there to write it. And it's interesting because all of the Red Seals write at the same time. So it doesn't matter if you're a millwright, a carpenter, it's at the Lead Street cafeteria, and everybody's just spread out equally. Right. There were 3 cooks, and we were the last people to sit down. And it's eerie when you stand up and you're an hour into the test, and you stand up and everybody's looking at you, and you're like, did I do something wrong? And they don't know what trade you are. So it's even more stressful for some of those people. Yeah. And then I've just been cooking ever since. I've worked at a bunch of different places downtown in a bunch of different formats. I've done long-term care facilities. I've done casual dining, fine dining. It doesn't really matter what it is. A lot of people ask cooks, what's your favorite thing to cook? I don't have a favorite thing to cook. I never picked one ingredient and said I'm going after it. I wanted to learn techniques. I wanted to be able to play with food and learn the different things. So knowing that tandoori or naan bread's made in a tandoori oven, it's like, okay, how can I do that, but I'm not going to build a tandoori oven? How can I play with some of those things and play with some flavors to change things? I've always wanted to make maple glazed salmon on curried oatmeal risotto. Oh, wow. And it's 2 flavors that all of it goes together in your mind, but on a plate to see it'd just be interesting. I've never made it, but one day I will. But it's playing with the techniques. It's always learning. You can never learn every technique from around the world. Right. And when you learn the technique, when they talk about fusion cooking from the late 90s, that's kind of where they were playing with flavors. I want to play with techniques. How can I do some of that stuff and bring it to Nova Scotia and do some of those things and bring it to the Navy? I suggested sous videing a whole strip loin to the old CO, and he was like, so how much does that machine cost? And I was like, well, it's not the machine, it's the time. Sir, it's the time. I don't have the space to do that. He goes, but how much is the machine? He was set on wanting to get one for the boat. So,
well, listen, I got to tell you, I didn't expect to be on the ocean on board HMCS Toronto talking about maple glazed salmon and curried risotto.
Curried oatmeal risotto.
Curried oatmeal. I got to tell you, that's a new one for me. So, how did your path through all of that culinary adventure? How did you find your way to the Navy?
I was doing a little soul searching after a little bit. My grandmother had gotten sick, and I did a little, as most my grandfather died when I was relatively young, and I got kind of handed down a couple boxes from my dad and from her, and you just start going through some of the heirlooms, and you find, I found out he was in the military for a little bit during one of the wars. It's like, well, if it's in my bones, I might as well see what it's like. There's you do it for a couple of years. If you don't like it, you get out. If you do like it, well, there's a beautiful career there.
and not just a job. You can do it as a job, and then I'd get out after 5 years. But to me, it's a career, and it's something that I plan on doing for 20 years. Actually, they said that this boat's supposed to retire in 2045, and I should retire before the boat. So hopefully that happens. If not, we'll see. We'll see. So
listen, Patrick, the Navy is sure lucky that you brought all of those kind of skills into this, and the crew must be happy. Tell me the importance of providing great, nutritious food for a ship at sea.
Oh, it's a juggling act, because everybody wants to eat healthy, and you can see it more in some of the newer sailors than some of the older sailors that love the deep fryers and the fish and chips on Friday. And they want healthy food, but they also want the comforts of home. So the Duff fridge is always full of whatever Grandma used to make, so that they get all those comforts and morale boost that it is. And then we make sure that anything that's over here is definitely going to make sure that they can keep going for their watches and stay alert and all the other things that they need. So we try to make sure we get really good balanced meals, and we'll have a local option, we'll have a healthy option, and a vegetarian option that is really good to the core. We always have a starch and a veg, and we try to build those with as much flavor as possible. And when they want a little bit of comfort food, we'll slide some things in here and there. Like some nights we'll have a pub night, or we'll do nachos. Big thing that we usually do at sea is a Sunday. So every Sunday we'll bring ice cream, and we'll fill this with ice, and you'll have different types of ice cream and different toppings, just to bring the morale up and make everybody together. And it's probably the one thing that brings everybody together, no matter what your department, what your rank is, no matter what. It's people come around I usually cook breakfast every single morning, and whoever here, they're surprised that when they come around the corner, I got their breakfast on a plate, because I've remembered what they've had.
Wow.
They're like, hey, and it's a time that you get to see every single person and interact with them and ask. And we have a couple really good programs in the Navy, and one of them is being the Sentinel program, where it's kind of a peer-to-peer mentor, where I can ask you how you doing, check how you're actually doing, not just are you doing okay at work, or are you actually mentally doing okay. And it gives you a bit of time when you got that one-on-one with someone, and the connection is the food. And I've always said to people when I was working, you might see people have a fight, but you never really see too many people arguing while eating. It's the one thing that kind of smooths everything over for a little bit.
True.
I've seen families have entire fights, but when they're eating, it's kind of just, that's the peacetime. That's like the no man's land. You're not allowed to argue, you're not allowed to bring things up. It's the food time, and you see that a lot.
When I was a kid, I threw green peas at my brother one time.
Oh, there's always the sibling rivalries, which we don't get into here. So,
listen, Patrick, this is a great conversation. I got to tell you, it went in directions I didn't know we were going to go in here tonight. But tell me this: what would you say to somebody that's looking at this type of lifestyle as an option right now? What would you say to them?
Do it. We're in the middle or towards the back end of a pandemic, and you look out at the careers and the climate of what's out there, and I still had to come to work. We still have to protect the country. We have to protect the interests of Canada and keep it safe for everybody else. And yeah, I might be doing, as I joke with my wife, I'm doing it one bowl of soup at a time, but that's the trade that I signed up for, and everybody signs the same line. They may want to shoot the gun, they might want to shoot the missiles, but somebody has to feed them while they're doing it. It's an important role on the boat, and it gives you a skill that if you don't want to do it here, you can do it anywhere else. Everybody has to eat, so you could, if you wanted to retire here after 3 years or 20 years and go somewhere else and keep cooking, you can go learn something else, because there's always tons to do.
What an amazing conversation. I can understand why the chief cook wanted us to speak with you. That took directions I never thought it would go. Patrick, I want to thank you for what you're doing on board this ship. It's clear that you are helping Canada one bowl of soup at a time.
Thank you.
And I really do appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, we're nearing the end of our journey on HMCS Toronto, and what an amazing journey it has been. Talking to the people that make this ship function, well, it was a true honor. There's no doubt about that. There's people on board this ship that are just fascinating, and they're doing fascinating work. But all the work and all the energy, it comes to a head on board a ship, and that is the commanding officer. There's an expression that the buck stops here. Well, the buck stops in this cabin, and we sure are excited to be in conversation with the commanding officer of this wonderful ship. Preston, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
So my name's Preston McIntosh, commanding officer of HMCS Toronto. I assumed command this past April, so still relatively new and getting used to the ship and the operations we do. My background, I grew up in Toronto, Ontario, actually about 2 blocks from the Staff College there, and then went through Upper Canada College, and then joined the military right after that, attending the Royal Military College in Kingston, and proceeded on to my
Top
career.
Art ship back in balance. Small arms firing complete.
Preston, what was it about the military that caught your eye?
So it was a couple of things. I have a father who was actually in the U.S. Navy.
Oh, wow.
And so I'd been interested since I was younger in the Navy itself. And then, to be honest, it was also the fact that it was a paid-for education at the Royal Military College that brought me to the military.
And how did you enjoy the military college experience?
It was good, challenging, certainly.
Right.
So everything from the physical to the academic all piled on top of each other gave me a very different experience than some of my friends who went to Queen's in the same city.
Right.
But overall, I've really enjoyed the opportunity and the diversity of courses and experiences that it brought through that.
Right.
And then the progression into the Navy, which I very much enjoy.
And specifically, how did you get intrigued by becoming, I guess at that time it would have been called a Mars officer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what about that jumped off the page?
Ironically enough, I had taught sailing prior to joining the military, and I grew up in a family where I had, as I said, my father's connection to the Navy, and then also my passion of sailing and enjoying boats and ships, and so it was just a logical fit when I joined the military. I think it was number one of my choices when I joined, and I got it. So.
Wow. That's pretty exciting. So you head off, you do all your training on the west coast of Canada, and then you find yourself into naval training. That's no easy stuff that you get involved in at this point. What was some of your highlights going through your naval career?
So early on, I was posted to frigates on the east coast, and had the opportunity not only to work with a number of different nations who joined exercises and multinational groups that I was part of, but also the opportunity to attend several of the fleet weeks that occurred in Boston and New York City at the time. Yeah. And so you get to meet all the sailors and have that opportunity ashore to interact with them on an ongoing basis and see the different cultures, the different navies that are out there and how they work. And to me, it was just really interesting at that stage of my life to see all of that. As I moved on in my career, I focused or specialized in anti-air warfare. And so had the opportunity then to transfer to destroyers, which brought a new class of ship, a new thing to be involved in. And really brought home for me the fact that I like new challenges. Right. And so the military for me has really over the years presented that opportunity of every 2 years switching jobs, finding a new set of challenges, be it a new ship, a new job, a new set of skills to learn. That really, to me, that's what keeps me intrigued and engaged with the Navy, and the reason I've stayed around, because there's always a new challenge.
Right. Well, certainly the Navy's given you a challenge now. We've given you a destroyer, and I said throughout the podcast, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of occupations, a lot of people doing different things on board. Tell me about the complexity of being the commanding officer of a destroyer or frigate.
Frigate, yeah. So I guess the initial thing that comes to mind of that is there's 241 people on board who each have their own individual background and set of skills that they bring to the table. And turning those 241 people from individuals into a fighting unit, which is the focus of the command team on board here, is probably the biggest challenge and the biggest thing we do. And we spend a lot of time figuring out the best ways to do that. The Navy has their sort of accepted approach to that, which is the sea training and the developmental or tiered readiness program of the ship. But for a ship in the particular time frame of the readiness program that we're in, which is on the back half of a 5-year program. So this ship has come from refit, through a readiness program, done a deployment, come back from that deployment, and is now finishing the last sort of year of its sailing before it goes into refit again, and then starts that whole 5-year cycle over again.
Right.
And so rather than having the normal level of tiered readiness that we would do, the number of visits from sea training and things that take us all the way to high readiness and deployment, this ship was actually coming back to what is called normal readiness, which is a readiness level designed to allow us to sail local waters, limited exercises if we were to go to Europe for an exercise, not for an actual deployment, things of that nature. So we had a small visit from sea training, but then we're after that left sort of to our own devices to train and to bring the crew on. Added to that complexity in Toronto at the moment is that we are primarily the fourth generation ship for the Navy, which means that I'm seeing a new crew every time I sail, essentially. So about 30 to 40% of my crew are added at the last moment as we get ready to go to sea, and they're here to do training in their trades, in their profession, so they can progress and so that they can become the core crews of the next ships to deploy.
Right.
So I'm setting the groundwork for the success of the other ships as they come out, and that's been the focus of the sailing since I got here.
Right.
What that does is it introduces a unique challenge to the ship itself, because you don't have that chance for the core crew to gel and to work together in its entirety for a long period of time.
Right.
So every time we go to sea, we're doing that basic set of drills of recovering someone who might have gone over the side, of learning to come to action stations again, learning to bring the ship to the different states of readiness required to conduct gunnery or to find submarines or to operate aircraft, which every time is a slightly unique thing to accomplish because it is a new team every time.
This is very interesting that you bring this up, right? I mean, because you have to go to sea like a professional hockey team going into the playoffs every time. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of things here that can go wrong, and there's a lot of complex pieces of equipment on board. So you've got to get amped up every time you go to sea, and go to sea like a fully functioning team. Yet many of the team are new, so you've got to bring those along with you. That's a lot. That's quite a challenge in and of itself, and then the fact that you and your team are able to achieve that is incredibly impressive. But I met some of these sailors, and I can tell you that the process of getting people ready to go to sea and sea training and all that, the type of leadership that I feel on this ship is different. There's personal. People feel connected here. Everybody we talk to, they feel part of a team. They say the words like family. They say things that are different than I'm part of a unit or I work at this. They speak in those terms. Tell me what that means for you to hear that. Because I'm sure you know that, but I want you to know that that's what's happening outside these walls.
So actually it's very gratifying to hear that. A big focus of the command team here, so that's myself, the coxswain, and the executive officer, has been to create that kind of atmosphere within the ship. And we've had a focus on communication, working with each other, learning to understand both the needs of the individuals in it, but how they also can work with the greater team that is Toronto, and to hear that the crew really has taken that to heart and internalized it is an extremely gratifying moment for me. When you get to the point of a ship being only a unit where someone doesn't identify with it as their team and their family, it makes it more difficult to work together, and it loses that human element that's so essential. As important as ships are to the Navy, because we obviously can't sail without them, a ship doesn't go anywhere without its crew, and so the focus has to be, as well as doing the operations, on making sure that the crew understands that they are the most valuable part of the ability of this ship to carry out its mission. And when they start thinking in terms of team and family and supporting each other, it seems a bit cliched to say it, but it becomes the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, which is what we're looking to accomplish here. A ship brings an immense capability in the 240 people that are on board to bear on any problem. but without that team approach, falls apart and can't achieve the things it can.
Yeah.
And we've definitely seen that over the years, the ability of the ships to deliver punch much more above their weight than you would expect, as we provided international aid in Haiti, or we've responded to calls in the Crimean or in the Arabian Gulf. Our ships have always responded well, and we've always been able to draw the crews into that family approach.
I'm sure there's many Canadians that are listening that really appreciate that Canada is indeed punching above its weight and doing its part globally. Great career you've had so far, on a great trajectory. You got a great ship, got a great ship's company, good group of people, and the horizon looks really good for the Navy. New ships coming out, being built as we speak. We're going to see some tomorrow, in fact. New ships behind that, and more even behind that.
Mm-hmm.
What an exciting time. Technology changing fast, and the Navy keeping up with it, right?
Yep.
And the team keeping up with the technology changing. What's the horizon look like for you?
So I guess I'm going to ask you, turn that around a moment. Are you asking about the ship individually, or
I'm asking about the Navy.
Okay. So, I mean, it is a promising horizon for the Navy. New ships bring new challenges, obviously. Like anything, there's going to be the pitfalls and the bugs to work out. But they also bring new capability and new contributions that we can make internationally, both to our allies and to Canada's priorities abroad. And you see that, like the Arctic offshore patrol ships that are now bringing Arctic capability to the Navy, with Harry DeWolf being the first ship up through the Arctic right now, with Margaret Brooke about to come online. You see that as we move forward, the joint supply ships that we're looking at bringing online in the next decade, and the capability those bring to sustain a fleet, not just of Canadian ships, but of allied ships at sea. So that again increases Canada's contribution internationally back to what it was in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, before we started removing some of the older ships from service. So we've had sort of a dip over the last decade as the number of ships were drawn down, and now we're seeing that increase back onto the naval front. And it can't be overstated enough the importance of naval power internationally. There is, I believe it's around 70% of the world's commerce moves by ocean.
Right.
And so to ignore the oceans is to ignore one of the largest contributors to international relations, international trade, and prosperity within the world. And so it's something we can't lose focus on, and there's definitely areas of the world in which naval power is becoming essential to that commercial endeavor. We look at the Gulf of Aden, 4,000 ships every week through that piece of water coming up through the Suez, and you have a failed government in Somalia with the piracy problem that persists. You have Yemen that's not doing very well on the north side of that, and the impacts that can have. Add to that the west coast of Africa is starting to see a piracy problem there that requires naval response and naval escort of shipping. As has happened for the last 200 years, the Strait of Malacca in the Pacific theater is a piracy hotspot as well in the world. And then you have the emerging naval threats of China, Russia starting to push back into the Ukraine. So it's a time when the naval theater cannot be ignored, and having new ships, new capabilities coming online allow us to participate in the Allied response in those areas.
Simply fantastic. Jerry, your final thoughts?
Well, I just want to say thank you to you, Preston, for having us on board. As you were speaking, I was looking at this commanding officer wooden plaque, I guess, and at the bottom, I don't know if anyone can see it in the video, it says excellence with vigor.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen excellence, and we've seen a whole lot of vigor out of your crew. I'm telling you, I was first on a frigate when I was 20 years old. That's 35 years ago. I had no idea what to expect. You've put one heck of a team together, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Well, another wonderful segment of Gale Force Winds, really. 2 days at sea with HMCS Toronto, and getting to know the people that make this ship function. It's been an honor, quite frankly. The Navy is clearly in good hands. The Navy has got a great future. They've got great people. And I always like to leave the audience with my own small piece of advice. And quite frankly, the country and the world needs more HMCS Toronto. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's Gale Force Winds, WINS.com.